Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. And I got to tell you, me and Joanne love this show called Big Sky. And the thing is, I have so many actors on this show that when I watch a TV show, I always go to IMDb and look these people up. And so I go up and look up this one character named Donno, who I guess you could say is a gentle giant, but he's not gentle when you find out, but he comes across that way. But all of a sudden, I found out that my guest today, who plays Donno, also writes for the show, and he used to write or he still might write for Queen of the South, which my old neighbor in Burbank, Mark Valadez, wrote for. So I sent Mark a message. I said, "Do you know this guy?" He said, "Yes." And now my guest is Ryan Onan. How you doing, Ryan?
Hey, how you doing, Steve?
Good. You know, it's funny how it's like such a small world. Like when you talk about, Hollywood, people, like character actors, different guys like you and the character, the female actors, like get a lot of work. They end up knowing so many people, and it just blows your mind.
That is true. I find that, as you meet more people, the world is actually really small of the people that are kind of working, and you end up knowing, oh my God, I know this person. Yeah, I know this one, just like all over the place in a really fun way that makes it feel like a bit of family.
Now, I want to talk about your career, but I want to talk about Big Sky, because now, did you start writing for Big Sky the first season? Tell me how it became where you were a writer, and then, because Donno shows up in the second season, if I'm correct. I don't think he was in the first season.
Yes.
So tell me how that happened.
I didn't work in the first season.
Okay, so you go in. Do you go on as a writer and a character, or do you go on as a writer and go, hey, I have an idea for a character? Tell me how that happens, because there's not a lot of people. You've done it on 2 shows and you've directed a movie you were in, so you've had that background. But how did it happen with Big Sky, where you got the job and then you ended up on screen?
Well, I started off as a kind of writer producer on Big Sky. On season 2, I was hired by Elwood Reed, who's the showrunner who took over about halfway through season 1 for David E. Kelley, and I had zero intention of acting on the show. It was a writing gig, really fun. The room is just an incredible group of people, just a full-on tribe of sweethearts. And I had done this once before on this other show. What ended up happening was the show had moved from Vancouver to New Mexico to shoot, both shooting for Montana. And they were setting things up, and Elwood said he needed one of the upper level writers to basically be planted on set to do a lot of the production work. Somebody that had a lot of production experience, and all the other upper levels have like young kids. So I was like, I'll do that. I was still getting to know Elwood as my boss. And he's an incredible writer, and so I was like, yeah, I have a lot of production experience. I'll go there to New Mexico. I'll be, boots on the ground, helping this thing get up and running. And he was just like going through roles that would essentially be local hires. And one of them was this sidekick to like the main new bad guy of season 2, which was this female, the daughter of this cartel coming out of Canada, played by Janina Galvikar. And he was like, and I want you to play this role. It was nothing. I mean, the description only said he has dead eyes. That was it. And so I was like, okay, yeah, that'll be fun. Getting a little acting, keeping my chops going. And then I based this character slightly off of this punk band that I really loved out of Canada. They had this the lead singer had this thick Manitoba accent, and I based him a little off of my showrunner, who's like this big guy, but kind of silent, and has this, this kind of imposing feeling about him. He's not like a super talkative guy. He's like, so I just played with these things. And for whatever reason, I think partially because he's kind of a comedic role on more of a drama, which it was what King George was on Queen of the South too. So it ended up kind of just, the character ended up taking off a little bit. I thought he was going to be dead in 1 or 2 episodes. And here I am, 2 seasons later.
Well, you know what's funny about it is, and as you watch it, yeah, in the beginning, you know, you're sort of thinking this guy's like an oaf, you know, like just the guy, he's just the muscle. And, you know, growing up watching mob movies and stuff like that, you know, you have the idea of, you know, just that character. But then, I mean, as it unrolls, I mean, did you help build that character? Like, all of a sudden, he's a great chef. Like, where the hell does that come from? Like, but it sort of endeared you to the guy, because even though he is an awful person, I mean, he would stab you, I mean, he would shoot you, but you don't dislike him. I mean, that's the thing. You know, his boss the first season, you don't like her. You know, I don't really like Jamie Lynn Sigler. She pisses me off too with her character. But your character, even though you're like the bad person, you know, you have these qualities. Did you say, "Oh, let's have him cook"? I mean, how did that whole angle come in? Because now the guy's like a gourmet, and yeah. Tell me how that happened, because that cracks me up. Because it's just, and that's why we like the show, because it's crazy. The storylines are crazy, but you watch it.
The storylines are very crazy,
and you're entertained for an hour. You know, it's like, you know, I know someone is like, "Oh, well, it's unrealistic." I'm like, it's TV, for Christ's sake. You know, it's something like, yeah, like there's going to be. But anyway, so did you develop the cooking part? Because that's just a weird twist to a cold-blooded killer.
I can't take credit for that. Elwood, one of the things that I think landed on my side kind of well is that Elwood, the showrunner, his wife ended up really liking the character. So Elwood, I think, started writing for it more, and he had this idea. He put in this thing about him being a chef, and that just kind of people responded to it, and then suddenly you have this kind of like realm of metaphor to work with. And I think just in general, Donno, I put him, you know, he's slightly on the spectrum. You know, I feel like people can identify with. He's definitely an underdog. He's just somebody that wants to do what what he's been told to do, and also protect the woman that he's there with. That's his job. And all these stupid things keep getting in the way. And at the end of the day, I think he's actually, I picture him as like a very traumatized young man. I think he had a horrific childhood, raised in a closet or something like that. You know, I think when I first came up with ideas of how I would play him, I imagined that he was like raised in a butcher shop. You know, so he got really good with knives. But that, like, you know, he had this like relationship with these animals, but they were all dead. It was messed up. Like, so that's where I just kind of started with that, and that just went into him being fascinated with cooking, maybe the butcher shop and stuff like that. But it was fun to make. But what's so fun is I don't write everything for Donno. I write some stuff, but like the whole room like did an incredible job of writing for this character, and I think the show has a really fun aspect of like quirkiness to it that I think keeps it from being just a, you know, everyday procedural. It has this like oddness to it, and definitely in season 3, Donno and Tanya or Danya, I think lend a lot of the oddness to it.
Now, did you know you were going to be on season 3? Because, you know, your old boss disappeared, and then, you know, Jamie cycled off. Did you know, like, did they say, okay, here's what's going to happen? Or did you think that season 3 you might just be back as a writer? I mean, how did you find out the news that Donno is coming back? Did they just call you and go, you're back?
Well, I you know, I am a writer-producer on the show, so it wasn't like I got a call from casting saying you're back. It was Elwood saying, I think this character has more life, and it helped that Jamie Lynn Sigler had been made. She was the first new person to be made a season regular going into season 3, and I don't think they'd completely figured out her storyline yet. But she needed somebody to talk to. So the fact that we'd established this kind of like interesting little relationship in season 2 of maybe they like each other, or maybe Donno likes her, you know, I think their relationship has had such a fun arc, because when you start out, he's trying to kill her. I mean, he's like, he hates her. He's trying to kill her. She stabs him in the leg with a tree branch. Like, he's hobbling after her, desperately wanting to kill this girl. And to the point in like season 3 where they have a kiss and that there's like some real love there. I mean, it's a big arc, which has been so fun to play.
Now, how is it for you to? You have to have the writer's room, but then you also have to act. And it's not like, I mean, I guess most of the time when you're on set, you have dead time if you're in the show. If it's not your scene, you sit around. But for you, you probably have no dead time because, you guys you write in advance. I mean, I know a lot of sitcom writers, and they write the season in advance. I mean, I would do some background. I would stop by, see them, say hi to them, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, we're working on 3 episodes down. For you, it's, as they always say, if you're on the set as an actor, there is a lot of downtime. And you go to your trailer, and now it's changed. You can't go to Crafty and steal all the Crunch bars because everything's thing. But how is it for you? How would your day be? Would there be some days where you would just act, or would there be some days you just wrote, or were you doing both each day? Could you go on the fly on your scenes and sort of rewrite?
It's kind of a little bit of mishmash of everything, man. It's you're working as a writer. You're hired to work as a writer 5 days a week, but it's a Zoom room, so which is I'm very thankful for because the fact that I have to be in New Mexico so much. If it wasn't an in-person room, I would miss so much of it, and I think that would be really difficult to be a writer and do that at the same time. But the thing about Donno's scenes in general is it's not like I'm Catherine Winnick or Jensen where I'm like in every scene, in every location, all over the place. If that's really how you can tell what your days are. A lot of my time I spend in that diner or that chunk that I was at the camp, and they tend to shoot all of that stuff at the same time, right? In one long day, maybe 2 days. So all of my acting, even though I may be all over episode in multiple scenes, they'll probably, if they're all in the diner, they'll shoot that in one day because the diner is kind of a farther off, inconvenient location. It's hard to do half a day at the diner and then half a day on the stages. So you kind of want to put it all together when you're scheduling. So I would not be in the room if I was shooting all day, but the rest of the time I'm in the room, I'm contributing ideas, I'm writing scripts. We do a lot of group writing together, so everybody's contributing scenes, which is super. I thought it was all like, oh wow, is that going to take away the authorship of it? But really the author of these things is Elwood, and we're putting this stuff up, and suddenly you realize, like, as you're producing stuff of an episode that's not yours, oh my god, I wrote this scene, oh I wrote that scene, and like it ends up being really fun.
No, I want to ask you something just off cuff, a question I always wondered. Catherine Winnick is Jenny Hoyt, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are they her rock T-shirts? Because I noticed this. I'm a big rock music
Those
fan.
are not her.
Okay, I was wondering because I always say to my wife, I'm like, "Hey, look, she's got that one," or like, "I got that one." And that's just so weird. That's what makes her so cool. Like, this woman is always wearing a rock and roll T-shirt. So I guess did someone from wardrobe and like your wardrobe? Did you have any say? Because you dress hip, but it's like an awkward hip. It's weird.
It isn't. I like an awkward hip. I think as far as Catherine goes, we've had these amazing costume designers for one thing that I think have really sculpted the way that the stuff that she wears, and how much is she supposed to dress like a cop but not dress like a cop? When does she throw on the old flak jacket and when doesn't she? All that stuff that I'm sure regular cops would watch that and be, what the
yeah.
But we're, like you said, we're in a make-believe land, right? So like we're in this quirky show where this cop does not wear anything related to a cop except maybe a little badge, and she's wearing high heels, high-heeled boots. So I think part of it, it's ABC. There's the guys got to look sexy, the women got to look sexy. Donno is one of the rare exceptions of does not need to be sexy, apparently. But I do like the stuff that I wear. I mean, he's wearing a lot of fun, like members only, and like the only say I've really had, as far as like an idea wise for my costume was when we were going up to the camping trip. they had all this camping stuff, and nobody really liked the idea of Donno wearing this camping gear, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, oh, it hadn't been approved, and so I had just gone on this trip in between the hiatus with my brother Spencer, and we'd gone to Hawaii, and in the bottom of my suitcase I had these like wrinkled on an elemental level Hawaiian shirts, and I just was like, I have these. If maybe Donno thinks he's going on vacation instead of he's going camping, and that ended up being what they loved it, and they ironed them, and then that ended up being what the style he wore while he was camping was all like more Hawaiian shirts or something.
Now you also, you've had some fighting scenes on there and different scenes. Do they train you for that, or is that a stuntman, or how does that work? 'Cause I know some people, that they love doing. I know actors who have been killed so many times on screen, and they'll tell you a story, and it's great. But you do some, crazy shit. I mean, do you have to get in a certain shape for that to make it look? Because it has to look realistic.
Steve, do I look like I'm in certain shape? Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be in some physical shape. I mean, you can't be muscle.
I've done a lot of stunts throughout my, playing. I so often play some kind of a bad guy, and like you're always doing something. I mean, I could put, and I'm always getting killed and stuff. Like eventually getting killed. I could make just a full on reel for Mother's Day of like kill scenes that I could send to my mom. I mean, one of these days I'm going to do it. But you know what? As I'm getting older, I rely a lot more on the stunt people. We have some incredible stunt people that like, some of them you're on set and they're wearing a wig that looks just like your hair. And like, you look at them, you're like, oh my God. And everybody mistakes them for you. And like, so, I can do some of the stuff. It depends on what it is. If I'm getting down on my knees aren't super great. So if I'm doing something where I have to get down, oftentimes I'll be like, hey, if it's a real rough thing, can we use the stunt guy? And which is great because I don't think they don't get their like stunt bump unless they actually do the stunt. So if you don't let them do it, I mean, you're just taking money away from the stunt people. That's the way I think about it.
So how did your whole career start? Did you want to act first? Did you want to write first? I mean, a lot of times, like my background, I did stand-up comedy for a long time, and in the late 80s, early 90s. And a lot of comics I knew were like, hey, you know what, we're tired of going on the road, and they would get a sitcom writing job, and it's a 9 to 5, and they get good money. And some people, and that came from just convenience. Like, okay, I don't feel like driving to this. What did you want to do first? Did you want to be an actor first, or a writer, or were you like one of those kids that was putting on their own plays and directing the stuff in the backyard when you were like 12?
You know what? I started out in music. I was like a singer-songwriter in this like indie punk band and like toured around and stuff like that. So I was always writing lyrics and always, and I wrote stories all the time as a kid. It was like, something I absolutely loved, and I was a voracious reader. But I just didn't even really imagine there was a world where I could write professionally in any way. Coming out of music, I think it's so performance oriented that I was like in my mid-20s and suddenly had this epiphany, like, oh my God, I can't be in a punk band when I'm 50 years old. I just can't do it. Like I wouldn't be able. So I like suddenly was like, oh my God, I have to do something else. And I went back like full-time academics and then and did that for a few years and then ran across this little theater company that was attached to this junior college that I was going to. And that I was like suddenly like, oh God, yeah, I forgot. Like I'm supposed to do something artistic. It was like just like a complete, you have to do something like this. So I went into something just as reliable as trying to be an actor, right? So I got into a really great university, Mason Gross School of the Arts. I was in school with Sebastian Stan. Was like my roommate. Like in New York, we moved out together. Tom Pelfrey was there, who was played Laura Linney's younger brother on Ozark. I mean, just like we were all there in this great lit program, and but I was going crazy. I was like a little bit older than everybody else. It was like 11 hours a day, 7 days a week, and so I just started writing to like keep myself sane essentially. And I wrote this little play, and I just started writing a screenplay, and I had found so much joy and love in that creative process. And kind of coming out of school, when I got my agents and started and everything, it was like I had a screenplay that had won this big contest. I had a play that was being kind of produced on both coasts, and I would just, so I felt I identified more as a writer, like emotionally, but all of my friends were actors. So and I was trying to be an actor, and I just found, there's a lot of like, you can make so much more money early on in your career as an actress. My agents really pushed me in that direction, but my heart was always in the writing. And more and more as I went along, I went, God, I need some more control over my life, I really wanted to write for TV. And I had this one little gig writing as a writer on Skins, the American version of it. And then I went back to acting. And then it really wasn't until Noah Hawley, who created Fargo, gave me a chance to write on this series that he made called Legion, which was it was an X-Men story, a Marvel show that really kind of launched my career as a TV writer. And then I went on to Queen of the South and Wu-Tang and American Saga and Big Sky. Sold a few things recently of my own.
And you did, because when I was writing my research, it's funny that you said about music, because I had a feeling that you had a background in music, because you're a movie, Brooklyn Brothers beat the best.
Yes.
Because that's about a songwriter. So I thought, if you don't know anything about music, you really can't pull off starring, writing, and directing in a movie about a songwriter, because you don't know. I mean, I always say, I am fascinated by songwriters. I'll hear a song and I'm like, holy crap, where did they come up with that? If you're writing a joke, I can do it in 2 seconds flat. A song, I had no idea. I could never. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of musicians, so I could write it from that angle, but I couldn't direct it or know what's going on. But what made you decide to put that all together and do your own movie?
Well, you know what? I didn't really leave music because I didn't love it anymore. I loved music still. I just didn't see how I could have a life and make a living doing it. But so when I stopped having that be like my number one priority, I went to Guitar Center and bought this little mixer and stuff like that, so I could record stuff. So over the years, while I was traveling around and moving to the East Coast and all that stuff, I would write these little songs, and with using GarageBand and stuff like that, make these little kind of songs that were acoustic guitar, but I would the drums were I would do the drum loops myself, and I don't know really how to play keyboard, but I would just figure out sounds that I liked, and I just built these songs and so when I tried that screenplay that I had won this contest with, I tried to get that made, but it was 2007. It had a male Asian lead. It was impossible to get funding. My best friend and I were working on it together, and eventually I just went, I need to after trying so hard, I was I need to, and I wasn't going to direct that. He was going to direct that. I was well, I kind of want to direct something. And I had just watched the Duplass brothers movie, The Puffy Chair, their first one, and they made it for $15,000. I was 15,000, and this thing felt like a movie. I was oh my God. I was maybe what if I tried to do that? I think I could raise $50,000 to make this thing. And I was no, I knew how to write the songs. I could do it just a little buddy thing. We do it with little handheld things. And I ended up getting more for it in the end. I found these amazing angel investors when I was on the festival circuit for something that I had acted in. And we made what I had written for $50,000. We shot it for $650,000 essentially, which is the opposite of usually what happens. Usually you write a movie that should be made for $3 million and you make it for $500,000, and you're just compromising left and right. It was the complete opposite for this one, where I had intentionally built it to be made for much, much less money. So I had a lot of freedom as I was making it, and I was able to make it look better, and I was able to get cast that I befriended along the way. Even Melissa Leo, who played this tiny little character in it. She had played my mom in this movie, and she was like, "I'll just be the person who pours the coffee in the background or something." Like, she was so kind, and but her name just being a part of it helped us get the money and all that stuff. Even though she had like 3 lines, and I just wrote I wrote. And then a friend of mine, Brendan Leach, he wrote a few of some of the songs that are in it, and I wrote, about 2/3 of the songs that were in it, something like that. And I just put together this little love story to songwriting, and it got into TIFF at Toronto International Film Festival, and it sold. And Adam Yout, his company, Oscilloscope, is bought it. It was actually like the last movie that Adam Yout bought, like between him and David Finkel before he died, and then David Finkel left and started A24, and so it was just like this last little crossroads of this movie, and but it came out everywhere. It didn't make any money,
but you directed it. That's incredible experience. Okay. So back to your acting. When do you start getting network shows? I know you were on the Blacklist. You were in Person of Interest. You were on the pilot of Justified. Is that true?
Oh yeah.
So what happened there? I mean, did you think you were going to be on the whole series, or how does that work? I mean, were you a character?
No, you definitely don't think you're going to be in the whole series when in the script he gets shot in the back of the head. No, and Walton Goggins and I, we were both played the bad guys in the pilot of Justified, these horrible people, and he was killed also. And they liked him so much that they ended up bringing him back. And I mean, what an incredible thing for him, because I mean, he spanned, because Justified, when it started out, I think they were really thinking of it as a procedural. And 3 episodes into it, they kind of abandoned that. It feels like it stops being like the case of the week. And Walton, I think, and the relationship with him that spans the whole series and makes it really serialized. That's what you do as a working actor. You just try and get a few gigs along the way. As far as Blacklist, I tested 5 times to play the character that Ryan Eggold eventually got on Blacklist, which was her boyfriend in it. I had just worked with Joe Carnahan, who directed the pilot, and so many stories along the way of massive roles and shows that I was either up for. I mean, tell me some of them, because that's always fascinating, because you see it. As an actor, there's the roles where they expect you to be on once, and then you're on the whole series. But tell me some of the roles that you were up for. And when you look back, do you say, I think that person may have been better for it than me? Or do you go, man, that's a bunch of shit. that role was mine. But what were some of the roles you were up for? Oh, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I was Frank Darabont's choice for Shane in The Walking Dead. We talked on the phone at the time, which John Bernthal, and then eventually they were just trying to go to me, but the network wouldn't let him just give me the role. So then eventually we went to this big test, and then I tested for Rick, and there was, I had heard through the casting director and stuff that I was going to be the choice for Rick at one point, but then it was am I going to be Shane? They were testing all these different actors for both Rick and Shane, and me and John Bernthal tested together, and we became buddies after that. But he was testing for Rick, and I was testing for Shane. And I thought to myself, out of all the guys here, there was 6 of us. I was oh my God, John Bernthal is so Shane. I shouldn't. Why am I even we should switch this right now. It would be so much better. But so that was I got very close on that. It was just between me and what's his name for Pope on Animal Kingdom, and I remember I was in that audition room and I was feeling this is feeling really, really good. I'm really excited. It's just me and this one guy. I recognize him, and I was like, "Where do I recognize him from?" And I looked up, and he was one of the leads of John Wells' last series, and I was like, "Oh." I don't know. it's been a ton. I think I've tested for one of the leads, if not the lead, of 25 series and have yet to get one. So I'm
Now,
still at it.
is that if I was an actor, I'd look at it two ways. One, is it discouraging because you didn't get it, or you're doing something right? You're just that one thing's not there. It's like, when people sit there, I know so many people have had pilots and they go, oh, I've been in so many pilots. Steven Weber's like, I've been in so many pilots. And I'm like, I said, well, you should be proud because you know how many people never got pilots? I mean, a shitload of people are waiting tables 100%. Or doing whatever. But how do you mentally handle that when you sit there and you're in the room? It's not like you're just someone sitting at home going, oh, I can be an actor. Oh, yeah, I'm going to make you're there, you're up for it, and you've had success. But how do you sit there and just keep pushing?
I think you don't. I mean, you really don't have a choice. At the end of the day, it's one or the other. You can either give up or keep going. And those moments, I think, really are they're both those things. There's part of you that's like fuck, I can't, like, another one. Like, I thought this one was for sure. I mean, I remember I was up for the lead of that show Rectified, and like the creator of it hugged me with tears in his eyes after my test, and then it went to the other guy. It was just me and Aiden Young, like the guy who got it, and then another one was like for this comedy on I think it was ABC. It was called Traffic Light, and the creators hugged me. They said, "You're so perfect for this world!" Like, oh my God, we're so excited. And then you don't get it. It's just me and one other guy. Like, so those are heartbreaking. Some of them you can't get out of bed because they're so, you wanted it. You allowed yourself to start dreaming a little bit of like what it was going to be or what you would do with it, or like how your life would potentially change. Whenever you're testing for that stuff too, not just that, you're like they make you sign the deals beforehand, right? So you're looking at like the millions of dollars that you could potentially make, and then when you don't get it, they snatch it back. So, but at the same time, you are close, right? You're super close to this shit. So like, you just need one yes. You just keep on going, and at the end of the day, I mean, you just kind of love it. I mean, it's harder now, like with this auditioning, because back in the day it wasn't even that long ago. Like you would go to live auditions and you would make friends with the casting directors, and even if you didn't get the job necessarily, you could make some fans of the director or the producer or especially the casting director while you were there. But now it's like everything's just self tapes, and just being on the other side of it, because I'm a writer producer on these shows, I deal with so much casting, and you want to like give everybody their due, like looking at the stuff, but so often you're like it's just an easy click to just go to the next person, So if you're having a busy day, or you're looking at these late at night or early in the morning, you got stuff ahead of you, you're just clicking through looking for somebody that like right off the bat like stands out to you. Whereas, before you'd be in a room and they had to watch your whole audition. Right. So you had a chance to like win them over. Like, you may not have been what they were looking for when you first went into it, but maybe halfway through they go, "Oh my God, I didn't really think of it like that, but wow." And then they give you get a chance for them to give you a little adjustment and see if you can change it. If your first attempt wasn't the idea they had in mind, could you adjust to it? Now there's none of that, right? It's just like a tape. That's your only chance to do anything. It is sent into the void, and it's gone. But like, what I've done based off a friend gave me this advice. My friend is like, he's like self-declared horrific at making tapes. So he's like, I just tell them I won't make tapes. He's like, I won't make a tape. I'll do a Zoom audition, but I won't make a tape. Like, and so I've kind of started trying to do that. And so I've been doing the Zoom auditions, and I've only had 2, but I booked one of them.
Now, do you think that when it is the tape, and I've heard different people tell different stories, okay? And some people love them because they can redo it a bunch of times, but like a lot of people, but older actors have been around, like you said, they love the room. You know, and
Yeah.
like you said, the casting director. You know, that's how you get the part. You know, and sometimes when they like you and they in their mind they're seeing and they're going, eventually I'm going to work with this guy. But
And they're advocating for you. I've had so many jobs have been through casting directors that have advocated for me.
But do you think now that someone can do a taped audition and they can do it 57 times, okay, they can keep doing it over and over, do you think that will take away the quality of actors getting work? Because it's like the big thing is with comedy. You know, someone is a hit on YouTube, okay, so they headline a show. I have a good buddy of mine. He's done Letterman, who did Letterman a bunch of times. This guy can do an hour and a half on his head and just crush a room. But they'll have this person headline the YouTuber, but then my friend Joe will come in as the feature and headline the rest of the nights and will just destroy the crowd, and this person will just eat shit because they're not versed on what it is to be a comic. It's also the same with musicians. Do you think that, and you're someone who looks at it both sides, because as you said, you, as a producer, you have input. Do you think that will hurt the talent pool a little bit? You think like before, you know, people, you know, I talked to someone who's, Timothy Busfield said that, you know, the reason a lot of the young English actors get work now is because they all go to school. They all go to the theater. They all do this. Do you think it will hurt the acting pool a little bit when you think about it, when people can sit there and just keep recording?
I disagree with that, by the way. Like what they said about the British actors. Like, it's not that they just go to, like, here's my little tirade on this. Like, I have so many British actor friends. Like, they're like, when I first came to LA, because I started off in New York, and I felt like I knew everybody when I went into auditions, and it was super fun. It was a community. I was getting a lot of stuff. I felt great. I moved out to LA. When I moved to LA, it was all Brits and Australians. I went into an audition once, and it was all Australians and an American girl that was sitting next to me, and everybody knew each other. They were all from Australia. It was a small little community, and I look over at the girl next to me, and I go, "Oh my God, I'm the only guy in here that's not Australian." And we'd been talking for a little bit, and she looks at me and she goes, "And I'm English." And she was just practicing her accent with me. Like, I was like, "Oh God." But I studied acting in London. I studied at the Globe. Like, I spent like almost 2 years out there, and I can say there is just as bad of actors in England. Like, and I'm sure there are in Australia too. But part of what it is, I think, is that they have this like tallest poppy syndrome, right? Where like, you know, don't be arrogant. Don't think you're better than you are. It's very anti-American. We're like all confidence all day, right? But like that tallest poppy syndrome, what it does though is that the people that take the chance and go across the pond and, you know, spend all this money and work to get a work visa, and like, you know, they can only have 1 year to book a job that's going to get them, you know, extend their visa, or they're gone. Like, right. So what happens is you have these people that like have, in order for them to feel confident enough to do that, not only did they probably go to school, which so many American actors go to school, they have probably been told by everybody how incredible they are. Like, these are really good actors. If you're a subpar actor from England, you are not probably getting on the fucking plane like to head to the United States. So we already are getting this like Darwinian version where we're only getting the very best that have really felt like I think I can make it in America, in this like huge abyss of like Los Angeles, you know, acting. So they move here knowing they have 1 year and they work their fucking asses off, and they're also the cream of the crop. And even further to come from Australia, right? So I think that's a big part of why, I mean, people just think British actors or Australian actors are better, is because we're only seeing like the very best of them that come over, right?
That makes sense.
That's my opinion, my little tirade on it. I mean, so many of my favorite actors in the world are British, but you know, I think that's a misnomer that Americans aren't as good. But I do feel like what you don't get, you do get the Americans that are like maybe the best actor in their little small town that have been told that they're great, and then they're going to move to Hollywood, you know, and so you get all, you know, it's like America. You also have a whole swath of like prom kings and prom queens that like are out here from the States that you don't get probably from those islands.
So now, as you're acting away, how does Ray Donovan come about?
Ray Donovan, that's a good question. I think that was just an audition somewhere along the way. Oh yeah, came from casting directors. So the casting directors, I remember this so specifically now. But the casting directors basically reached out to me with these two awesome young casting directors that had done Ray Donovan, for a while. They had worked, John Papsadera, was the main casting director, and these two were like under them, and they were just awesome. I had a really great relationship with them, and they basically brought me in for this role, and they were like, "Listen, I don't even know why you're coming in for this. I know that, it was like the audition was like 2 lines or something like that, but they knew that the character was going to be coming back a bunch, right?" I just recently did this with another role for my show. I was like, "Listen, this is one scene." I went out to a few of my big actor friends. I was like, "This is one scene, but I know that it's going to go on further," and they both turned it down. And it went on for like 11 episodes or something like that, and became incredible. They knew it was going to become a larger role. And Anne, who created the show, I was in a van with her actually, and she was like towards the end of that season. I think it came in season 2, and she was like, "I love this role. I created this role. I have all these plans for it going forward." And then she got fired, as the creator of the show. And the character did not go into more interesting places. He kind of just chilled out in the meetings with Bunchy. Whereas in my first season I was on, I was brought into that party at the family, and there's all this fun, interesting stuff. I got to interact with the rest of the people there, and then it just her idea for the character was not whoever's idea that took over.
So you do that now. So how does Queen of the South, where you met Valadez? It's funny. When I was moving to L.A., he bought my kitchen table. He lived right next door to me. Were you brought on first as a writer on that, or an actor?
Yes,
you're brought on as a writer.
I was brought on as a writer. When I got that, I had worked so hard to be taken seriously as a writer, because there's a big prejudice against actors from the TV writing community, because so many people have dealt with really difficult actors, myself included at this point. And every actor, has got a script that they just wrote, So it took me a really long time to be taken seriously. And so when I got that job on Queen of the South, I had thought to myself, and my idea was, I'm putting acting aside. I am really focusing on this, or I'm not going to be able to make of it what I want to. And so I wasn't even thinking anything about acting on the show. I was just thinking of doing the best job I possibly could as a writer. And one of the writers, I created this role, based off this guy that I met at this Sundance celebrity poker tournament. This big dude named George that his dad was a multi-billionaire, and he had inherited all the money when he died. But George he hadn't inherited any of it, and so he just did these crazy thrill things. He didn't care about money at all. So it was just he was the head of a speedboat competition team, and he would drive drunk in the mountains in his Hummer, and he would fly planes. He was such a character, and we were looking for this idea of a smuggler in the show, and I was like, what if it was kind of something like this guy who just doesn't really care that much about the money, he more cares about the thrill. And I kind of mixed in a little Matthew McConaughey with that, and so I was pitching it, and I pitched the character somebody like Alec Baldwin or John Goodman, somebody big. I'd written the opening scene for him, and he was big, chubby dude, a big belly, who was wearing just a Speedo with a crown on it, like nothing else. So it's not like you could fat suit this person. and we went out to people. I mean, I had no intention of it, and they were going out to people, and they couldn't find somebody for the role. And one of the writers was like you should do that. You should. And I was like, no, I've worked too hard to. I'm not. And then they still couldn't find it. And I would be kind of like pitching stuff and acting out like, and then he goes over here and he does this, like, and the showrunner at one point was like, would you be interested in doing that? Like, we wouldn't, and I was like, well, if it's the showrunner that's asking me, I was like, I mean, yeah, I mean, she was like, you'd have to put yourself on tape and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, but I knew it would be going directly to her. And I also would have to gain 45 pounds. Like I put on 45 pounds of weight, like, for this. So I said yes, I did it. I did not think the role was going to be like, I thought it was just going to be a couple episodes, and I thought, oh, this will be interesting to change my body significantly. Like, it would look really different, and I'd, be captured for all time. And I gained a little bit of weight and lost weight on a different role. And so I thought, oh, that'd be easy. Here I am, dude. Like what, 6-7 years later, I still have the weight.
How do you put 45 pounds on? I know I put some weight on, but that's because I was on this one medication because my heart thing, but then I started going to the gym and walking, so it came off. But I was never more than like 15 pounds heavier than I've ever been in my life. How does one put on, like, did you sit there and say to yourself, I got to eat like a goddamn pig? Because I mean, how do you put on 45 pounds? Because it's not like you had like 2 years to do it.
I've been skinny kind of my whole life. There was no I have to. It was I get to eat like a goddamn pig. And it was like I just ate anything I wanted. I mean, I was eating 2 pints of ice cream and going to sleep at night. I mean, like, Steve, I probably shaved like 5 years of my life off. Bottom of the candle definitely got sliced off. But my doctor says I'm doing okay. But I'm trying to lose it now, and it's really, really hard.
Well, I have a question for you. Do you think if you had not put on the weight, you would have ended up in the role of Donno?
That's a really good question. I don't know. Maybe like because the role was so not like fully conceived when I got it. He was just the henchman, that was there. Like maybe I would have, but I think the weight on Donno, at least in these first 2 seasons he's been a part of it, adds a lot to who he is.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right, like the heaviness of it. I look bigger because of it. Like, he's a little more imposing, and also I think there's an element just psychologically that Donno doesn't think about himself all that much. Right, so he's kind of dumpy and he's kind of hunched and like and that he's always thinking of the other person. He's always thinking of Ren in season 2, and he's always thinking of Tanya in season 3. And he's not, and he loves to eat. Also, I think that's a part of it. But I think there's definitely this element to him that I think the weight adds to in a way that surprised me in some ways.
Now, Wu-Tang. Tell me about Wu-Tang and American Saga, which you got to play Tommy Mottola, which someone just told me a story.
How do you know that?
What's that?
How do you know that? Is it listed?
Yeah, it's on IMDb.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not news?
No, it's. I mean, I have no idea. I didn't put it there. I did play Tommy Mottola. Do I think I played Tommy Mottola well? I don't know. I feel like me just as a person am very, very different than Tommy. I watched a ton of stuff, and I really did my best on the day. But you know what I think I struggle with as an actor. We all have things that we do well and things that we don't do well. One of the things that I think I struggle with is being somebody that is like a born king, somebody that is just reeks of confidence and just knows they're meant to be here. I've always I think I can play somebody that's acting like they have confidence, but right below that confidence is a stream of pain and suffering. So and I feel like that's kind of quite different than Tommy. I think Tommy sits in his world and like a king, and knows that he's meant to be there. And I think that I struggled with that role, but hopefully I pulled off some version of it. I got my version of it. Is it Tommy Mottola in front of the screen? I don't think so, but it's my version, I guess, of Tommy Mottola. As far as Wu-Tang, I had worked with it was co-created by RZA from Wu-Tang and Alex C, who was an amazing feature writer. He had written that movie Watchmen and tons and tons of other stuff. Superfly and we had worked together in a mini room on a show for Sony that didn't end up going, but we really connected, and so he wanted to bring me on to Wu-Tang, which was a perfect timing, so I ended up still acting on Queen at this time, which I was really lucky. I thought I was going to have to stop, but RZA's wife really loved Queen of the South and loved King George, so I got to keep doing it, which was awesome. The wives come through for me, man. It's great. So yeah, I worked on that show for 2 seasons, which was a blast, especially having come from music, and really getting to dive into the music of the 90s when I came up, in music. Yeah, that was a blast. And then so I moved on to Big Sky after 2 seasons because there was such a gap in time between season 2 and season 3 because of the pandemic and everything, that I was already contracted to Big Sky, so I couldn't go back to season 3 of Wu-Tang. So I think in some ways they were like, well, you can be a part of season 3 by playing Tommy Mottola. So hopefully I did it justice.
Now, is Big Sky picked up for season 4?
No idea. I mean, it isn't out as of right now. We're just waiting. We're waiting we probably won't hear until like April, May. That tends to be when they let us know.
It's such a pain in the ass, as a TV watcher. Well, at least for Big Sky, on the first season, you ended in a cliffhanger. This season's not really a cliff. Like, we know that Reba McEntire, we know what happened. You guys have your little thing and your kiss.
Season 2 wasn't a cliffhanger either. We were told they didn't want a cliffhanger.
Season 1, though, was. I remember. And as a viewer, it sucks when that happens because if the show doesn't get canceled, if it gets canceled, you're like, man, I don't know what happened. It's like if you fall asleep during Chopped, you go, I don't know who won. I don't know, who won at the end of the thing. But
yeah. I feel like you can do a big old cliffhanger if your show's coming back for sure. Right. I hate the shows where you're like, there's a massive cliffhanger and then it just got canceled and you're like, what?
So what else do you have going on right now? You're hanging out. You don't know about Big Sky. Are you writing right now? Are you acting? What are you doing right now or planning to do? What's your goal for the next few months?
I had a novel come out this last year called Winders. It's a sci-fi novel that I'm really proud of. I'm about, I want to say 2/3 through my next novel, which I'm really excited about, but I have to get my ass in the seat and just get this first draft done for the love of God. I've sold 2 shows, which I'm really excited about. Like, one I sold off a spec script that I wrote, and the other one I sold off of a pitch. It's based off a big comic book. And then I just booked a gig on a very cool show, which I don't think I can talk about, unfortunately. But it's just like a little 3-episode arc, but I'm really excited about it because I love the world of those shows. So
you're a busy guy.
Busy, yeah. I'm trying to stay busy. I'm auditioning when they ask me to, or when they reach out. I'm writing my stuff and trying to, what I've been doing over these last few weeks is I've been doing the showrunner training program, which once a year the WGA you have to be nominated for it from either an executive or a showrunner. And then you have to go through like a process of applying essays and interview and stuff like that. And then usually they choose 20. This year they choose 30 of us, 20 from drama and 10 from comedy. And we're just getting these like it's all day long on Saturday, and it's all these amazing showrunners that are coming in and they talk to us about everything and like about building your own show. I mean, it's everyone from John Wells to Sean Ryan to I mean, just Angela Kang, Mike Schur. I mean, it's just like one awesome person after the next, and it's been such a incredible learning experience. So I've been kind of focusing on that, and if one of my shows were to go, hoping that I'd be in a good enough position to be like a strong leader on one of those things.
That's awesome, man. I want to thank you for coming on. Now I know you're on Twitter and you're on Instagram. Give your information.
My Twitter handle is I am Ryan Onan, and then my Instagram is Onan the Barbarian.
All right, so people go check Ryan out. And if you haven't watched Big Sky, watch it. It's fun, you know. It's a fun show, and that's all I'm going to say. And it's got blood, and it's got drugs, and it's got sex, and it's what else can you ask for on a TV show? I mean, and you don't sit there and go, oh my God, this is so heavy. You actually enjoy it, and his character's great. We really enjoy his character, me and Joanne. And
Thank you, brother.
People, go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 945 episodes there. Email me, cooper@coopertalk.net. Twitter, it's at Cooper Talk. Instagram, it's at Cooper Talk 1. I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you guys next time.